March 31st, 1899. The preciousness of sufferings. This morning, my adorable Jesus made himself seen crucified, and after he communicated his pains to me, he told me, "Many are the wounds that made me suffer during my passion, but one was the cross." This means that many are the roads by which I draw souls to perfection, but one is the heaven in which these souls must unite. So if one misses that heaven, there is no other that can render them blessed forever. Then he added, "Take a look. One is the cross, but this cross was formed with various pieces of wood. This means that one is heaven, but this heaven contains various places, more or less glorious, and these places will be distributed according to the sufferings suffered down here, more or less heavy. Oh, if all knew the preciousness of suffering, they would compete with one another to suffer more. But this science is not recognized by the world, and so they abhor everything that can render them richer for eternity." April 3rd, 1899. Humility without confidence is false virtue. After having gone through several days of privation and of tears, I found myself all confused and annihilated within myself. In my interior, I kept saying continuously, "Tell me, O my God, O my good, why have you moved away from me? Where have I offended you, that you no longer make yourself seen? And if you show yourself, it is almost concealed and in silence. Oh, please do not make me wait and wait any longer, for my heart cannot take any more." Finally, Jesus showed himself a little more clearly, and in seeing me so annihilated, he told me, "If you knew how much I like humility, humility is the littlest plant that can be found, but its branches are so high as to reach heaven, wind their way around my throne, and penetrate even into my heart. This little plant is humility, and the branches that this plant produces are confidence. So there cannot be true humility without confidence. Humility without confidence is false virtue. From the words of my Jesus, it shows that my heart was not only annihilated, but also a little discouraged. April 5th, 1899. How Jesus keeps her overshadowed in his love. My soul continued in its annihilation, and with the fear of losing sweet Jesus, when it, in one instant, all of a sudden, he made himself seen and told me, "I keep you in the shadow of my charity. So since the shadow penetrates everywhere, my love keeps you overshadowed everywhere and in everything. What do you fear then? How can I leave you while I keep you so sunken in my love?" While Jesus was saying this, I wanted to ask him why he was not making himself seen according to his usual way. But Jesus disappeared from me immediately and did not give me the time to tell him even one word. Oh God, what pain. April 7th, 1899. Luisa refreshes Jesus. He says to her, "I want to make of you an object of my satisfactions." It continues in the same state, but this morning especially, it was most bitter for me. I had almost lost the hope that Jesus would come. Oh, how many tears I had to shed. It was the very last hour, and Jesus was still not coming. Oh God, what to do? My heart was in such a strong pain and in continuous throbbing, but so strongly that I felt a mortal agony. In my interior, I said to him, "My good Jesus, don't you yourself see that I feel life missing in me? Tell me at least, how can one be without you? How can one live? Though I am ungrateful at so many graces, yet I love you. since I offer you this most bitter pain of your absence to repair for my ingratitude. But come, have patience, Jesus. You are so good. Don't make me wait any longer. Come. Don't you yourself know what a cruel tyrant love is, that you don't have compassion for me? While I was in this state, so painful, Jesus came, all compassion, told me, I have come now, do not cry any more, come to me. In one instant, I found myself outside of myself together with him, and I looked at him, but with such fear that I might lose him again, that tears would pour in large streams from my eyes. Jesus continued telling me, no, do not cry any more. Take a look at how I am suffering. Look at my head. The thorns have penetrated so deep inside that they no longer appear outside. Do you see how many gashes and blood cover my body? Come close to me. Give me a refreshment. By occupying myself with the pains of Jesus, I forgot a little bit about my own, and so I started from his head. Oh, how harrowing it was to see those thorns so sunken into his flesh that one could hardly pull them out. While I was doing this, Jesus would lament. So great was the pain he suffered. After I pulled that crown of thorns off, all broken, I put it together again, and knowing that the greatest pleasure one can give Jesus is to suffer for him, I took it and I drove it onto my head. Then he had me kiss his wounds one by one, and in some of the wounds he wanted me to suckle the blood. I was trying to do everything he wanted, but in mute silence, when the most holy Virgin came and told me, ask Jesus what he wants to make of you. I would not dare, but Mama encouraged me to do it. To make her content, I drew my lips close to the ear of Jesus, and in a whisper I said to him, what do you want to make of me? And he answered, I want to make of you an object of my satisfactions. And in the very act of saying these words, he disappeared, and I found myself inside myself. April 9th, 1899. Jesus refreshes her from the pains of his privation, keeping her with him in the tabernacle. This morning, Jesus made himself seen and carried me inside a church. There I listened to Holy Mass, and I received communion from the hands of Jesus. After this, I clung to his feet, but so strongly that I could not detach myself. The thought of the pains of the past days, that is, the privation of Jesus, made me fear so much that I might lose him again, that while at his feet I cried and said to him, this time, O Jesus, I will not leave you any more, because when you go away from me, you make me suffer and wait so much. Jesus told me, come into my arms, for I want to refresh you from the pains of these past days. I almost did not dare to do it, but Jesus stretched out his hands and took me from his feet, and he embraced me and said, do not fear, for I do not leave you. This morning I want to make you content. Come and stay with me in the tabernacle. And so we both withdrew into the tabernacle. Who can say what we did? Now he would kiss me and I him. Now I would rest in him and Jesus in me. Now I would see the offenses he received and would make acts of reparation for the different offenses. Who can say the patience of Jesus in the sacrament? It is such and so great that it is frightening just to think about it. But while I was doing this, Jesus made me see the confessor who was coming to call me into myself. Jesus told me, enough now, go, for obedience is calling you. And it seemed that my soul would return to my body, and indeed the confessor was calling me to obedience. April 12, 1899. Jesus says to her, being in the sacrament is for me the same as being in your heart. Hypocrisy, bitter pain for Jesus. Today, without making me wait too long, Jesus came quickly and told me, "You are my tabernacle." Being in the sacrament is for me the same as being in your heart, or rather, in you I find something more. I am able to share my pains with you, and to have you together with me, a living victim before divine justice, which I do not find in the sacrament. And while saying these words, he enclosed himself inside of me. While being inside of me, Jesus would make me feel now the pricks of the thorns, now the pains of the cross, the labors and the sufferings of his heart. Around his heart I could see a braid of iron spikes, which made Jesus suffer very much. Ah, how much pity I felt in seeing him suffer so much. I would have wanted to suffer everything myself rather than let my sweet Jesus suffer. And from the heart I prayed him to give me the pains, to me the suffering. Jesus told me, "Daughter, the offenses which most pierce my heart are the masses said sacrilegiously and the hypocrisies. Who can say what I comprehended in these 2 words? It seemed to me that externally one shows that he loves and praises the Lord, but internally he has poison ready to kill him. Externally one shows that he wants the glory and honor of God, while internally he seeks his own honor and esteem. All the works done with hypocrisy, and even the holiest ones, are works completely poisoned, which embitter the heart of Jesus." April 6, 1899. Preparation for communion, offenses given to Jesus by his own. While I was in my usual state, Jesus invited me to go around and to see what creatures were doing. I said to him, "My adorable Jesus, this morning I don't feel like going around and seeing the fences they give you. Let us stay here, the 2 of us together." But Jesus insisted that he wanted me to go around, and so, to make him content, I said to him, "If you want to go out, let us rather go inside some churches, because the offenses they give you are fewer there." And so we went inside a church, but there also he was offended, more than in other places, not because more sins are committed in the churches than in the world, but because those are offenses given by his dearest ones, by the very ones who should lay down body and soul to defend the honor and glory of God. This is why they reach his adorable heart more painfully. I could see devout souls who, because of bagatelles of no importance, did not prepare well for communion. Instead of thinking of Jesus, their minds were thinking about their little disturbances, about many trifles, and this was their occupation. How Jesus pitied them, and how much pity they themselves aroused as they paid attention to so many straws, to so many specks, but then they didn't so much as glance at Jesus. Jesus said to me, "My daughter, how these souls prevent my grace from pouring into them. I do not look at the trifles, but at the love with which they come to me, yet they make an exchange. They pay more attention to straws than to love. But while love destroys the straws, with many straws, love cannot increase even a tiny bit. On the contrary, it is decreased. But what is worse about these souls is that they get so disturbed and they waste much time. They would like to spend entire hours with their confessors to tell all their trifles, but they never get down to work with a good and courageous resolution in order to root those straws out. What to tell you then, O my daughter, about certain priests of these times? It can be said that they operate almost satanically, reaching the point of making themselves idols of souls. Ah, yes, it is by my sons that my heart is pierced the most, because if others offend me more, they offend the members of my body. But my own offend me in my most sensitive and tender parts, deep into my inmost heart. Who can say the torment of Jesus? In speaking these words, he was crying bitterly. I did as much as I could to compassionate him and repair him. But while I was doing this, Jesus and I together withdrew into my bed.